Hi, it's Rebecca here from Precious Pages Papercraft, and today I am designing for Peartree Cutfiles. For today's project I have something slightly different to normal. I am using the Happy Cutfile from the September release, I think it was, and instead of making my normal 12 by 12 layout with it, I am going to make a birthday card. We have been really bad at sending birthday cards this year, obviously due to COVID-19. I've not actually been in a supermarket really since March. I think I've made 2 very quick trips out of desperation, and that's it. So my local stores, I can't get birthday cards on click and collect or home delivery orders. So I've not really had the opportunity to go out and pick birthday cards. And I don't particularly like using the likes of Moon Pig and Funky Pigeon and things like that. I don't find them very personal. So I thought for my mother-in-law's birthday this week, I would make a card instead. So I've shrunk the cut file down quite considerably. It is about 5 inches in width. So I've done it quite small. I've cut it on an ivory coloured textured cardstock. I don't use ivory a lot, and I have quite a bit of it, and I thought, considering I was going to cover it all up, it wouldn't matter. It was more the texture I was going for on this. So I am using my heat gun and my embossing powders again this week. Seem to be on a bit of a kick with it at the moment. I've rediscovered it and love it. So I am using my Ranger Distress Embossing Dabber, and that's in place of an embossing stamp. So I just coat the cut file with that. Then I'm using the Paper Mania embossing powder. This one is Tinsel Gold. So I just pour that all over the cut file, shake off the excess, and most importantly return that to the pot with the lid on so that it doesn't get blown everywhere. And then I set that with my heat gun. So I've done the cut file. I'm also doing the tiny little centres for the A and the 2 Ps. These are quite tricky because they're so tiny. I can't really hold them and use the heat gun because it will burn my fingers. So I end up having to go over those twice just to make sure they are evenly coated. But same process, just cover them with the embossing dabber, pour the embossing powder over in Tinsel Gold, and then just set with the heat tool. Have a bit of trouble with these blowing around, but we get there in the end. And there is my cut file, all shiny and sparkly. So now I can move on to actually forming my card. So this is a sheet of extra thick A4 card. I'm trimming it down slightly to more even numbers, just to make it easier to find the exact middle point. And I also didn't want it to be exactly A5, I wanted it slightly smaller. So I've just used my paper trimmer there, and rather than using the blade, I've just used a tool to score down the centre of my card so that I can fold it in half. And then I'm cutting another piece slightly smaller that I can stick to the front there to make a border. Now I made a bit of a boo-boo here, and I cut it slightly too small, so my cut file is now wider down the base of my card. So I had to go around and do that bit again. But I've mainly done that because I wanted to add a coloured border around the edge of the card, and also I want to add mixed media to the card. So just having the single sheet of A4 folded over is going to be quite flimsy once I've added inks and waters. So by doing this, I can do my mixed media on this smaller section, and then I can stick that to the front of the card, and it just makes it a little bit stronger. And if this bit warps, it's got then the base of the card to kind of iron it out a bit and just give it a bit more strength. So for my mixed media, I am using here the Picked Raspberry Distress Ink pad. Just putting it on a bit of packaging, mixing it with some water and smooshing it down. I've used a very small amount of water because I didn't want to cover the background in colour. I wanted it to look very patchy like it does, and I find the best way to do that is to just use minimal water. The more water I use, the more kind of a colour wash it gives the whole background, and I wanted this patchy. And then I've just gone back in with the same process and added some splatters with my paintbrush. Set that aside to dry, and now I'm working on my letters. So the colour I'm using here, it's another Distress ink pad, and this one is Spun Sugar, which is a very pale pink. And putting it over the ivory cardstock, it wasn't quite the shade I was going for. So I come back in with a second shade. So this is Worn Lipstick. It's more of a kind of orangey coral pink. And I just add that in certain areas to add a bit of shading, a bit more interest. And then I'm coming back in with the picked raspberry just on the left hand side of the letters, just again a bit more shading, a bit more shadow. It just makes the letters look a bit more dimensional and not so flat. And just again using the ink pad with a tiny amount of water and a thin paintbrush. So that is where my cut file is going to sit on the middle. So now that's all sorted, I'm letting my letters dry, and now I can work on my frame. So again, I've reached for the Picked Raspberry Distress ink, and I'm just going to go around the edge of my card. And this is the bit that my mixed media background will sit on, so you're only going to see the very outer edge, so I don't need to worry about covering the whole sheet there. I'm just going to go around the edge with an ink blending tool just to make sure that's nice and bright pink. So here we go, that is what my card will kind of look like. As with all my scrapbooking layouts, I really can't leave an edge as it is, so I have to distress everything. Even if I want to leave it as it is, I just look at it and it just screams at me, distress me, distress me. So I've reached for my scissors and I've distressed the edge of the front of my card there, and I'm using double-sided tape all around the edge just to stick that down to the front of the card, just having a tiny bit of that pink frame showing around the edge there. So here we go, this is kind of what my card will look like. I'm just trying to figure out the placement of my cut file there. I'm going to add the word birthday underneath it using some small thickers, so I want to make sure I don't cover up too much of the mixed media. So just trying to figure out the placement, and I'm adding PVA tacky glue just behind the outer edge of the the outline of the letters there. That's the only bit I add glue to on this cut file. So that will be stuck flat in the middle, and then I will leave the leaves kind of loose so that they can pop off the page with a bit of dimension, so that it doesn't look completely flat on the page. And then I'm going to pop in my individual letters like so. At this point I'm looking at it and I think the letters aren't standing out enough, they're getting a bit lost amongst the background there. So I go around the edge of each letter with the Picked Raspberry Distress ink again, just to make them a bit bolder, to give them an edge to sort of pop off the page a bit more. So I do that for each letter, and then I add frame pads behind each one and stick them down so that they are raised up off of the card just a little bit higher than the cut file. Again, just adds a bit more dimension, a bit more interest. It means my layout isn't quite, I get so used to saying layout, my card isn't so flat and well, boring really. I want a bit more interest to it. So these are the thickers I've picked out for the word birthday. They are kind of like an iridescent glitter. They're kind of multicoloured but quite pink in a way. I love these. They came in a set. We got this colour and then you got black as well. I'm almost out of the black, which is quite sad because I really do love these thickers. Trying to just decide where I want them to sit there, and then I'm going to come in with some floral stamps and a bit more embossing powder. So again, with the dabber just on the back of the stamp as you would an ink pad, then I'm going to press that down to get the impression onto my card and pour over yet more embossing powder. So I'm using the same one, that Tinsel Gold by Paper Mania. in a minute I reach for my card, there you go, and use my fingers to drag it back over, and I put my fingers right down on my flower. So the bottom corner there of my flower has now disappeared, so I do have to go back over and do that one with a second coat just to sort of fill in the gaps and make it a bit bolder. I don't make you watch all of this because it's kind of the same process repeated, but I do 3 flowers in the bottom corner and 1 up in the top corner there. And then I do one on the, I'll do 2 I think, on the inside of the card as well. I do have a little sentiment stamp that says just a note to say, and you can just see on that bit of A4 paper there, I tested that out to see if I could pop that in the centre of the card, but it really wasn't stamping very well, and it was a bit blurry, couldn't really read what it said, so I decided against that. So, oh no, it looks like I did three flowers inside. So again, same process, dry it off with my heat tool to set it, and I think that's pretty much me done. What I did realise once I'd turned the camera off is that I'd forgotten to put the centres of the A and the 2 P's back in, so I'll have to do that off camera. So just finishing off with a few pink splatters, and then I'll add the centre of those letters in, and that's my card finished. So thank you very much for joining me today. Please do check out Peartree Cutfiles website. The cut files are really versatile, as I've shown here. You don't just need to use them for scrapbook layouts, they will be great for birthday cards and other projects as well. Please check out the Facebook group as well, because every Wednesday we get a lovely freebie, and there's loads of inspiration in that group. You can see how everybody else is using their cut files. So thanks very much, and I'll see you next time.